All right, everyone. Hello again. This is Wesley Chan. I'm a developer advocate at Google. And today I'm going to talk to you about this intelligent image processing workflow. But that was the marketing title. This is the title of actually what I'm going to show you, which is an image archive analysis and report generation service that I built with Google Cloud late last year. And I wanted to show everybody what this is and why I think it's important. So I won't be able to join you, unfortunately, for the wrap up today. But if you have any other questions for me afterwards, there is a short link that you see in the upper right-hand corner there where you can send me additional. Let me see if I can turn on my laser pointer. Yeah, so you can send me additional questions there once the session is over and the conference is over. If you have any follow-up questions, just feel free to ask me there. It's a public document, and you can also go in and see questions that other people have asked at previous presentations that I gave. So without further ado, let's move ahead. So the main reason for this presentation is recognizing that, we can talk technology all the time, but really I think it's important to bring about, that fact that organizations have real life business problems that need to be solved, whether you're solving it or whether, another enterprise is hiring your firm to do, coming up with the solutions. Somebody's got to fix the problems. And so Google Cloud, which is a large organization that I work for, we have two large product groups, the Cloud Platform as well as Google Workspace, which is, used to be called G Suite, but really it's the collection of, Gmail, Google Drive, Calendar, Doc Sheet, Slides. You're probably familiar with it. You may know that, the Cloud Platform, of course, it's well known for our VMs and big disk and our machine learning services, data storage, data processing. So that's what our Cloud Platform is, if you didn't already know that. And of course, Workspace is known for its applications, like the ones I just mentioned. But one thing people don't know is that it's also for developers, and I'll show that to you. And really, I think there's a lot of power if you can leverage both of these platforms to build interesting solutions to solve unique business problems. So that's what we're going to go through today. So there's 5 parts to today's agenda. I'm going to give you a sort of an introduction to Google API. So this is leaning towards developers, but if you're a technical manager, or a CIO, CTO, this is also useful for you as well. So in between, the beginning intro all the way to wrapping up, I will dive into how to use Google Cloud APIs more specifically. So, the module 1 is mostly sort of like a generic introduction to Google APIs in general. Then we're going to dive into cloud ones. And then, of course, the main reason why you're here, which is the image processing workflow, maybe show you another app to provide a little bit more inspiration and also to show you a little variety of what else you can do. And then, of course, that's really the purpose is to let your imagination kind of run wild. Okay. All right. So my background as a developer advocate, my job is to enable all current and future developers everywhere to be successful using Google Cloud and other Google developer tools and APIs. My current focus is on our serverless tools, which I will actually not be talking about today, and higher education, which I won't be talking about either. But I will be saying something about Google Workspace, and I will also be discussing Cloud Platform AI and ML APIs, as well as multi-product use cases. So you're all getting 3 out of the 5 things that I typically do. I would love to have been in Prague to speak to you personally, but not quite safe yet, so maybe later. My background is I've been a software developer for several decades. I've worked at several large companies and a whole bunch of small ones that you wouldn't recognize. Probably the most well-known thing I did, I was one of the original 10, I believe, engineers that built Yahoo Mail several decades ago. Outside of work, I teach quite a bit, and I am a member of the Python community. So our code samples will be in Python. Surprise, surprise. All right, so let's talk about Google APIs. Like, why are you here? To learn a little bit about Google, some of the APIs that we make available to users, and why is that? So, Google, of course, is known for search, and perhaps Android, YouTube, Chrome, and of course, Workspace. But, you're looking at it from the perspective of a user, all right? So we don't want everybody around the world to reinvent the wheel all the time. So we've taken a lot of our products and we've put in developer APIs behind them so that you can actually leverage our technologies when you're building your next web app or your next mobile app, or more than likely both. So how do you use Google APIs? We have a Cloud Console, so you can find that pretty easily. You will log in with your Google account. whether it's a consumer Gmail account or your professional Google account. You will create a project. So for every application you write using Google APIs, you will create a project, sort of like a logical container for all the resources you're going to use. Then you're going to go to the libraries page and sort of turn on all the different APIs you want to use. We don't enable all of them by default. You have to pick and choose what you want. Not all of them are free. So the cloud platform ones do charge. So there's a little bit about cost on the right-hand side here. So cloud platform, it's pay per use. So you pay like like any other cloud service, right? It's same thing goes for your water utilities, electricity, your telephone every month. Whereas with Workspace, that's done on a subscription basis. There's a monthly fee depending on how many employees are in your company and things like that. We do have a free trial for cloud platform, so you get $300 to try out the cloud platform for an entire quarter. You do need a credit card for that. However, cloud platform always has this thing called a always free tier, which is a free daily or monthly quota. And many products have this kind of free quota, so you have to exceed this quota in order to incur any kind of billing. So you can learn more about the always free tier as well as the free trial at the link that you see down below. So anyway, so since we're going to be using cloud platform APIs, we do have to turn on billing and either use the free trial or use the credit card or any other financial instrument that we accept from your region. Once you have that, then you download any appropriate client libraries to use those APIs, create and download any credentials that you need, write your code, run your code. So, it's really it's a 9-step process. It sounds like a lot, but, you follow the same routine enough times, it'll be pretty easy to figure out. All right, to give you a sneak preview as to what our Cloud Console looks like, if you've never seen it before, when you go to console.cloud.google.com, you get placed at a dashboard. And in the left-hand navigation are sort of like the important things that you can access. So the key things to keep an eye out on are our products. So you choose which cloud platform products to use. So that's one. Second thing is billing. Of course, that is where you add your financial instrument to support this project that you're working on. If you're working with other users, the IAM and admin tab will be where you allow other users to work on your project. They can have edit access, they can have view-only access, they can have owner access. You decide who has what permissions. And then lastly, but I think most importantly, is the API manager, where you turn on or enable which APIs you want to use, as well as get the credentials so that you can access those APIs. So those are the main chunks of the Cloud Console. Now, if you go to the API Manager, which I mentioned last on the previous slide, we're going to dig into this a little bit more. This comes with 3 different tabs. The first, the dashboard, which you see here. This gives you sort of like an overview of your application, like how much traffic are you getting, how many errors is your application generating, and maybe roughly what is the response time, average response time back to your users. And then down below, you'll see a list of all the different APIs you have enabled for this current project that you're using. So this is basically application statistics that you get for all of your projects. And then the second tab, which I'm not showing you, is the library. So you just click on the library tab, and that's where you do the enabling and disabling of the Google APIs you wish to use. We have so many that there's just a search bar. You start typing the first couple of letters of the API you're interested in using, and it will go and show you which ones we have with that name, and then you just go and click Enable API for the ones that you're interested in. And then the last tab is the credentials tab. So that is where you create the credentials that are needed by that API in order for you to use the services that it provides. So that is the API Manager. There's also a little shortcut, so you don't have to go to the Cloud Console first and then come to the API Manager. You can just go straight to the API Manager with this link here. And anytime you see a blue box with an arrow like this, that just means I made a video on it, because this topic can go on for a lot longer than I have time for in this presentation. So you can check it out. Now, when you do click on the Credentials tab, you will be asked what type of credentials you want, and it depends on what kind of APIs you're using. So the easiest types of credentials we have are the simple ones, and those are API keys, and they are generally used to access public data. So for example, if you want to search for a location on Google Maps, you want to look for a video on YouTube, and maybe some cloud platform APIs are public. For example, sending a string of text to the natural language API. right? That text is not really necessarily data owned by a user. It's just like a simple sentence, regardless of what your language is, right? So those are examples of accessing public data. And for public data, you only need API keys. Now, getting to more secure types of access, we have authorized access. And this is to access data that's owned by a human user. And so that type of credential is called an OAuth client ID. All right, and this is supported by, of course, Google Workspace. For example, somebody's files on their Google Drive, their Google Spreadsheet, maybe their YouTube playlist, and some cloud platform. You can use OAuth client IDs as well. But typically when you're in the cloud, you're using the other type of authorized credential, and that is a service account. So this is to access data that is owned by an application or some kind of robot user. So these are mostly for cloud platform APIs, although some workspace APIs accept these as well. So I just wanted you all to be aware of these different credential types because, depending on what you want to access and who that data belongs to, you have to pick the right one. Okay. All right. So let's talk about client libraries. So like I said, I'm going to do the demos in Python, but if you don't know Python, that's fine. Just look at our code and look at the Python code and pretend it's pseudocode, because a lot of people think that Python is executable pseudocode anyway. So regardless of what your favorite or authorized employer programming languages, we support most of them. We have two types of client libraries. I'll explain that on the next slide, but where you download the platform client libraries is at this link down here, and then where you download the cloud client libraries is at the second link. So now, actually 2 slides from now, let me first explain that all of the client libraries that you see, whichever one you use, platform ones or product ones, it doesn't really matter because they're all open source. So of course, Google believes in open source. That's why we're at this conference. All right, so we believe in having an open cloud. And what that means is you can have your workloads running on Google Cloud, but you should be able to easily take that and move it to your own internal on-prem or another cloud or a hybrid of the two, or even if you're using multi-cloud. We want you to be able to move your applications fairly easily. So, and we've even signed a lot of open source and open data centric organizations to partner with us to continue this openness that we are trying to espouse. And we also have a blog that's dedicated to open source as well too. So anyway, so that's why all of the client libraries that you see here, they're all open source. You can find them on GitHub and you can reverse engineer them. For example, if you have something that's written in C and you don't see a C or a C++ client library here, you can take a look at those, those client libraries, this actual source code, and figure out how our APIs work so you can build your own. All right, so now to answer the question, why is there a platform client libraries and why do we have product client libraries? Well, 2 reasons. The platform client libraries are lower level, so I have to be honest. These are sort of like the lowest common denominator, and you would typically use this if you want to use multiple products, multiple product groups where they're not necessarily related to each other. You want the lowest common denominator so they can talk to each other. Otherwise, we suggest that you stick with the higher level ones. So if you're only going to use like cloud platform libraries or only Google Maps libraries, you should install the product level client libraries because they're higher level. You don't have to worry about as much, it's not infrastructure, but I would call it API infrastructure. You don't have to worry about all those nitty gritty details or all of like the security code that you would have to write. Okay. But we are going to do that a little bit today. So, and the reason is because I'm using workspace APIs as well as GCP APIs. So I'll be using the platform level, lower level ones today. Some API families support both, for example, the ones in Google Cloud. Okay, so that is it. And as far as how our APIs work, it's pretty basic. It's very much of a request response workflow. So your application will make a request to our APIs. You have to get past the security. You have to have the right keys and the credentials to access the API. Once that's good, the API sees that, it gets your request, it does whatever it needs to do, and then it sends a response back to your application. So very much of a client server model. All right, so let's move on to Google Cloud. So again, Google Cloud is a large organization. We make 2 well-known platforms, so product groups. So we have Cloud Platform, we have Workspace. We already discussed this. again, workspace applications are pretty well known to most everyone, but we also have APIs. So this means APIs, and this means AppScript, which is a higher level way of accessing Google services without necessarily, talking HTTP or, OAuth and things like that. It's really meant for business developers. So a lot of that stuff is abstracted away from you. Okay, so that's that. A little bit about where do these products stand as far as cloud computing goes. So of course, cloud computing is divided up into three major service levels. So we have software as a service at the top, which is just basically online apps. So anytime you use an app and you have to go to a web browser or your mobile app to use it, that's probably a SaaS application, like all of the workspace apps, including O365 or Salesforce or any of the email services that are well known. And of course, down at the bottom, we have infrastructure as a service. That's basically all your virtual machines and big disk and things like that. And then in between, we have platform as a service. So these are all the services where you can write code, you upload it to these systems, and they run it for you. And then, of course, there's always gray areas in between. So, for example, in between infrastructure and platform as a service, you have all these data and networking services. Not, of course, they're higher level than raw hardware, but it's not quite a PaaS system that you can upload code to and run. And then similarly, there are restricted PaaS systems that live between the PaaS and the SaaS layer. And these are typically PaaS systems that require you to have data at the SaaS level. Okay, so that's kind of like how cloud platform and workspace APIs are divided up. All right, so let's get to your first code sample and look at it here. This is Python. So this is a very basic 4-line application because the only 4 lines in this app are really down here. So this will just list your first 100 files and folders in your Google Drive. This whole chunk in the middle, that is all security code, because as you know, Google Drive files belong to human users, so you need to have an OAuth client ID, right? And so this is the process where if your user is going to run your application needs the permission of the data owner, the user, before it can access their data. So that's what this is. And of course, at the top are the imports. So once the OAuth screen is presented to the user and the user accepts and grants your app permission to access their Drive files, you'll create an API endpoint to talk to Google Drive. You will execute the list command that's part of the files collection as part of the Drive API. You'll execute it, and then you'll get all the list of files. And then for every file, you're going to print out the file name and its MIME type. Pretty basic. There's a video on this one. So just to give you a rough idea of how our APIs work. And then to give you a kind of a rough idea how this Spreadsheet API works, because this is part of our image processing workflow, you see that I'm going to migrate a bunch of SQL data out of this SQL database into a spreadsheet. So I'm going to connect to the relational database. I'm going to select all of the toy orders from this database. And then I'm going to create a spreadsheet with this one line. So the most important stuff is bolded, by the way. You don't have to read every line of code. All right. So this will just create a blank spreadsheet, and I get the ID of that brand new spreadsheet back. And then now that I have all the rows of the database, including one row for the header for the column names, because that's we want that in the spreadsheet too, right? So that's why I inserted that into my rows as row 0. So that's the first row that's going to be written to the spreadsheet. Then the data comes after that. Okay, so I'm going to take that spreadsheet, spreadsheet ID. I'm going to start storing data at cell A1 in the upper left corner, and here are my rows. I'm passing in all the rows, of course, with the column names at the top, and then I'm just going to write those straight to the spreadsheet, and that's it. This is really just a 3-line application. Of course, there's 6 lines to read the data out of the database, but as far as using spreadsheets goes, 1 line to create the spreadsheet, 1 line to add the rows to the spreadsheet, and then there's a video for this one as well. Moving on to the cloud side, so this is where we're going to, use our big giant bucket, right? Storage. How do you access cloud storage, which is our giant data lake in the cloud? All right, so this is just a really simple app that shows the content that you have in a bucket. So create an endpoint to the Cloud Storage API, give it the bucket name, and then make a call to list all the files in my bucket, and then just print them all out one at a time, just like what we did with Google Drive. And then the last API we're going to use is the Vision API, which is a machine learning API that analyzes the contents of an image. And I'm going to do label detection, which is identify the objects in an image, which is going to be this image here. And then I want to do some facial detection as well, too. Not like facial recognition, but just detecting facial features like, is this person happy? Are they sad? And things like that. So this is, since you're just uploading a general image, this doesn't require OAuth client ID. That's why there's very little security code in here. All you need is an API key, because this is generic public data, because it's just an image, right, that you upload. So those are the 4 APIs we're going to use. And so in this particular case, I'm going to say, hey, Google Vision, please annotate this image with these features. And then I'm going to print out all the objects that it sees in the image. And then I'm going to print out the facial features. And then so for an image like this, it sees these objects in the image, and then a percentage, like confidence score, as to how likely this is part of the image, and then facial features. So the only facial feature exhibited in this photo is joy. Everything else is very unlikely. So this is just a quick demo, and if you're really interested in this API, there is a quick code lab here, which is a free online self-paced tutorial, and you can get through this in about half an hour or so, and you'll learn 4 different features of the Vision API. So I showed you the 4 APIs we're going to use. So now let's go to the main reason why you're here, which is the image processing workflow. So I'm anticipating, or I guess I'm anticipating that you're going to be in one of these fields. You're either in manufacturing, or maybe you're in the media. Maybe you're in advertising, or maybe you're in architecture. What is common among all of these industries? The thing that's the most common about them is they generate a lot of visual assets. There's going to be a lot of pictures. There's going to be a lot of images. There's going to be a lot of multimedia. All right. And so just imagine that's the setting, right? You're in an industry that you're generating lots of image assets, whether they're, static images or videos. And after a while, if you are a Google Workspace user like I am, my Google Drive looks like this. I have folders for every video that I've done, every conference I've presented at. My drive is a mess. It takes me 2 screens to scroll down to see what my current files in Drive are, because I have to get past all those folders. So that is the problem that we're facing today. So Google Drive. I want to get rid of these images. I want to get them out of the way, because once I'm done with the project, I'm not likely to look for them, right? They're not my current work anymore. So I really want to archive them to colder storage, like cloud storage. And the less I access those files, the less I pay, right? So that's really the main reason for archiving to a big giant data lake like this, is because I'm maybe only going to look at these at most once a year, maybe once a quarter, but really not every day. I don't want it cluttering up my Google Drive. And if I'm going to archive them, I want to keep track of what I'm archiving. So I want to pass all of these images I'm saving to the Cloud Vision API, because I want to catalog them. I want to build sort of like a mini search engine and somehow be able to find the images I'm looking for. And of course, since I have so many images in my drive, I really want to track everything with a spreadsheet. Okay, that's really, really what I want to do. And so this is the end result of what I want. And in fact, why don't you just make the link clickable so that I can actually go and see my image that's been backed up to Google Drive? This is really what I want, right? So how do we do this? This is a Google Drive. This is an application using both Workspace and GCP. So I'm dropping some hints here. So we're going to start with a Google Drive. We're going to archive the image to cloud storage. We're going to categorize the image with Cloud Vision. And then we're going to take the output of cloud storage as well as Cloud Vision and then record the results into a spreadsheet. So here is our application. Again, I'm going to show you sort of like bolded code. So this is just a setup, right? This is setting up, creating the endpoints to all these different APIs. This is the security code that we saw earlier with the Google Drive, and these are just some constants. These are the imports. So there's no real code here. This is just the boilerplate setup stuff. The real application is here. So again, just focus on the stuff that's in bold. All right. So the main application drives everything. So I have one function that will download the image from Drive, clear off my Google Drive. I have another function that uploads that image to cloud storage. I have another function that analyzes that image with Cloud Vision. And then I have a last one, which is appending a row of data about that image to a Google Sheet. And then my main calls all 4 of them It's going to download the file from Drive, return me some data, the actual payload, the binary, the timestamp, MIME type of the file. Then I'm going to upload that to cloud storage. And then I'm going to call the Vision API on that data and give me the top 5 labels that I get from Cloud Vision. And then I'm going to write the row with most of this data into the spreadsheet. So to look at these separately, downloading from Drive, how hard is it? 1 line to find the file. So I'm querying for the file given the name. Once I have the name, I grab information about it, like the file name, the file ID, and the MIME type. And then I say, give me the binary blob that makes up this file. And then I have the things that I need are the MIME type, the last updated time, and the actual binary itself. So that's 4 lines, pretty basic. Upload to cloud storage. Here's my metadata. All right, insert that into cloud storage. Easily done. Take that data, analyze it with Cloud Vision. So this is very similar to the example I showed you earlier. This is even easier. No facial recognition here. Just give me the top 5 labels. And then write the row, 1-liner, straight into the spreadsheet. Okay. And then here's the main that calls all 4 of them. Okay. So that is it. So to learn more about this, I'll give you a demo right after I'm done with the slides, by the way. There's a blog post on it. There's a code lab for it, so you can build it line by line. Again, this one will take you a little longer than ½ hour. So I would say maybe an hour up to 90 minutes, perhaps. Or you can just say, forget all that, just give me the code. So it's here on GitHub. All right, so let's wrap up. So inspiration, what's another example of using GCP and Workspace? So my colleague built an app that added custom intelligence to Gmail by analyzing Workspace with GCP. So his use case was, oh my gosh, I get a lot of email. And even though Gmail does a great job filtering out spam, there's a lot of messages that I really don't want to see. And there's only a few that I care about. So that's the use case. His use case was, I only care about email that have pictures of birds in them or attachments with pictures of birds. So what did he write? He wrote an app so that anytime you got a new message in Gmail, that would send a message to Google Cloud PubSub, which is like Apache Kafka. If you've used that, it's a message queue service. That will trigger a Google Cloud function, one of the serverless tools I represent, and that will extract the attachments and send those pictures to Cloud Vision to analyze them. And then if bird is one of the labels that comes back, then I'm going to star that message so that without running any code explicitly, the next time he logs into Gmail, he'll see that some of his email messages are starred because there's pictures of attachments of birds in them. So that's another example. So Gmail API, PubSub is used, Cloud Functions. You can read more about this example in his blog post or go straight to the code as well. Okay, so to wrap up, Google provides more than just apps. We are more than just search, YouTube, Android, Chrome, and Gmail. Much of our tech is available to developers using our APIs. So I give you a little bit of a tour of our cloud APIs and dev tools, namely Workspace and GCP. And I showed maybe a little bit of serverless at the end. But the interesting thing is that you can build interesting apps if you use both sides of cloud together. And of course, there's other Google APIs as well, like Firebase, Data Studio, Actions on Google for voice-driven apps, YouTube, Google Maps, as well as Flutter that lets you build native apps in Android, iOS, and the web with only one code base. No more having to write 3 different versions of the same thing. And other resources that you can use to learn more about everything I talked about in the talk today. Thank you very much. Here are the slides. Here's the blog post again. Here's the code lab. So take a picture of this. This is the most important thing to take a picture of. And if you notice the progress bars down at the bottom, you can see my screen. Here's the code. I swear it's the same thing as what you saw on the slides. I mean, doesn't it look similar? It's not a scam. It's real. It's real. So I'm going to run it. So Python 3. This is step 5 of the tutorial. So I'm literally running this. And you can see that I am processing that image. And oh, by the way, I've had to add pauses in this because it goes too fast. Okay, so this will hopefully not take too long. Oh my God, it finished already. I forgot to run verbose mode. I'm so sorry. Let me run it in verbose mode. All right. Darn it. Okay, pretend you didn't see this spreadsheet. All right, downloaded the image, uploaded to cloud storage, called Cloud Vision, stuck 6 cells into the Google Sheet, and now I'm opening the browser to the sheet, which is here. Look how many times I've run this demo before this talk. So I've run it like this is the 5th time I ran this, well, including this one. So I actually ran it 3 times before doing this talk. So that's the live demo. This thing really does work. It's cool. All right. Are there any questions?